Today is Wednesday, Parashat Vayishlach. The Torah covers every aspect of life. So just for example, we'll learn today the Mishnah from the Chok Leisrael for today. Hachovel bechavero chayav alav mishum chamisha devarim. So a person who injures, inflicts a wound on someone, he's obligated to pay him for 5 different things. Benezek. Nezek is the damage. Betza'ar. He has to pay for the pain. Beripui. He has to pay for the medical expenses to heal him. Beshevet. He has to pay for his lost wages. The guy's not able to work because of that injury. The lost wages he has to pay for. Uboshet. Boshet is the humiliation, the embarrassment that the person suffered because of that injury. The person who caused the injury has to pay. So these 5 things, the Mishnah then explains all of them. Benezek ketzad, how do you evaluate the damage? And the Gemara goes on to explain, simet eno, if he blinded the victim's eye, katayit yado, or he cut off his hand, shiberet raglo, or he broke his leg, or imoto kelo aved nimkar bashuk, veshamin kama yafe vekama yafe. We evaluate how much the person would have fetched in the slave or servant market before the injury, and how much is he worth today if you were to sell him. At the time they used to sell people, so we evaluate that person, how much he would be worth before the injury and how much is he worth now. I guess maybe today, if there is no slaves, you would evaluate how much he could fetch in terms of earnings over time, and how much is he worth in terms of his production before the injury and after the injury. And that difference is considered to be the damage. Tsa'ar, the pain. How do you evaluate pain of a person? So the Mishnah explains, Keva'o b'shapud v'masper, if he burnt him with a hot spit, a hot skewer, or with a nail, afilu al tziporno, even if he was on his fingernail where a person doesn't have a scar that would be left, Omdim kama adam kayutze bazer rotze litol liot mitzar kach. We estimate how much money a person like this would be willing to take in order to suffer such pain. If it's a minimal pain, maybe it's a minimal amount of money. If it's a lot of pain, then he would be willing to endure that pain. If he was paid X dollars, that's how you evaluate the tsa'ar, the pain. Ripui, what is ripui? The healing. If he injured him, he has to pay for the medical expenses to heal him. What about if there is a sore that developed, there is an infection that developed? If developed because of the wound, because of the injury, he has to pay for healing that as well. But if it was something that was not related to the injury, he doesn't have to pay for the healing for that. Even if there was a relapse, in other words, he was healed a little bit and then he relapsed, and then healed and relapsed, he has to pay for all the way until totally healed. But if the wound, the injury was totally healed, he was totally healed, and if the injury, if in the same place happens to be another injury or something else happened, he doesn't have to be responsible for that. Or how about shevet, lost wages? He gets paid for the lost wages as if he was a guard for a cucumber field. In other words, for the most basic type of salary, minimum wage, because he already because he was already compensated for the damage. When we said how much he was worth before he was injured and after he was injured. So all he's left is just the basic minimum wage type of payment to pay. And finally, boshet. Boshet is the humiliation. That is evaluated. It's evaluated based on who's the person who's humiliating and who's the person who's being humiliated. So it's something that is dependent on the person causing the injury and the person who was injured to evaluate how bad is the embarrassment, how bad is the humiliation, and to put kind of a dollar value on that. So you see that the Torah covers every aspect of life here. It was the liability and injury that is being compensated, and we said with these 5 things, which is the damage, the pain, the medical expenses, the lost wages, and finally the payment for the embarrassment or humiliation. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen ve'amen.